Of this as well, or what?
They're going to be trying to follow along in their computers, but don't stop too long to answer questions. We're going to have a video of this on the website.
Yeah.
So they can just refer back to the website for more information. That's kind of what we did with the first Gavin's talk, right?
Yeah, it seems to work pretty well.
Okay, cool.
And if you guys have any questions while Jimmy's working, I also know Maya, so you can flag me down. I can help you guys get back on track so you can continue following Jimmy.
All right. So everyone start off with the new scene. And first thing you want to do is create a new project. So you go under File, Project Window, and then hit New for the current project. Title it whatever you want, and then just hit the default. So New, and then just hit Accept. And since I already have the project, I'll just be using my own project. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to start off with a reference image of. So what I'm doing is I'm just basically drawing out the. Actually, I should probably teach controls first. So the controls for Maya, if you want to control the camera for different views, pretty much everything you want to do when you move a camera is hit the Alt button, or hold the Alt, and then left mouse is to rotate the camera. The middle mouse is to move the camera from side to side, pan it, and then the right mouse is to zoom in and out. So those are basic camera controls, and then Q is, so these are your select tool, lasso tool, all that stuff. Q is just to select your object and go back to the, I guess, basic pointer. W would be to activate the move key, so once you hit W on an object, you can move it around in the space. E is for rotation, and R is for scale. And up here, if you go to, I'm not sure if you guys have this or not, so at the top there's different tabs like animation, polygon, surface dynamics, rendering, and dynamic, all that. Today we're mostly going to be working on polygon, so if you guys can just select that. And under tabs, go to polygons as well. So here you can pretty much make whatever object you want. So you just select whichever shape you want, and then you drag it on to the grid. And usually when you do that, it's going to ask you for like the size and length, so you can just change it up as much as you want. But for now, what I set up is an image or a plane. So it's this one right here, and I just made a regular square. And then what you want to do is right-click and assign a new material. And what we're going to do is use a Lambert. And for this, so pretty much what this is pretty. It's all over the polygons. It just puts a shader on it so that we can put image over it, or like put an image over it, or put textures on it, stuff like that. So in the Lambert, there's this checker box right over here, and on color, you want to click that. Or actually, I didn't give you guys an image, so it doesn't really matter. Well, normally when you get a reference image online, you can put it in your source images file in your project window, like here. And so this is the image that I'm going to pull up and try to match. And so I would go under the checker box, file, and then just get the iron sword. And it's pretty, then you, pretty much after that, you want to just go to the UV editor. Well, right now, it doesn't really matter since I'm going to be teaching you how to model the object, not the image plane. But if you have any questions, just ask Wu about that later on. Thank you, Wu. Yeah. So what we're going to start off with is, so I have my basic image plane that I'm going to start off with. And if you hit spacebar, you can go to this view. If not spacebar, it's on right here on this corner, bottom left corner. And what it does is it gives me an orthographic view of like the top, side, and front view. And for now, primarily, we're going to work in the top view. If you hit the 6 key, it shows the textures that are laid on the image. And you want to start off with a regular image plane and just draw right on top of it. Or I guess in this case, since you don't have an image, just draw like a long rectangular square.
So let's take a look and see how many squares that is, just so we can give a rough estimate.
Okay, sure. So that's 13 squares, 13 and a half squares, and that will be the length of the blade by 1 square. Is there an easier way to do that, or figure out that number, or do you just have to count it every time?
Just count the squares.
Just count the squares? All right.
That's a bit more.
Okay. So now, I guess the important things to know is the different keys. I'm going to be mainly teaching in hotkeys, I guess, because that's easy for me. F8 is to go into object mode, which is to select the whole object. So if you hit F8, you can move around the entire object on its own. F9 is to change into vertice mode. And so that means you can select the points and move those around with your newly acquired skill of W, E, and R. So you can move that around and make a basic sword shape. And then E for rotation and R for scale. But right now we're mainly going to focus on the move tool. So if you can click on the vert mode and then click the top right-hand corner vert, you can just move that around, make it into a short sword shape. And just from there you have like a very basic shape of a short sword blade. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be working only on one half of the object so that I can duplicate it later. I'll show you how to mirror the object, and then you can just combine those two and you'll have a perfectly symmetrical object. Okay, so from there you can press F10, which is to select edge mode, and that means you can change you can move the whole edge, and you want to get the bottom because right now we're going to be pretty much building the basic shape of the sword itself. And up here there's a bunch of different tools that you can play around later and figure out what it does, but we're going to be using the extrude tool, which creates another plane or another geometry from that point wherever you select. So if you select it from, let's say, if you select the plane and then extrude it up, it'll create this more of a square shape, that sort of thing. But for now, we're going to select the edge of it and extrude that. And you'll get these keys, and then you just want to pull it down and try to match, and then just kind of create a base of your sword. So let's say it's about half the length of the square, or on the width, and the length is a full square. And then you want to hit extrude one more time, bring it down, and then you have the hilt. And one more time, if you hit G, it repeats the last action that you used in Maya. So if you hit G, you'll extrude one more time, and then you can bring that down to the butt of the sword. Okay. And then so that we can get the shape of the handguard, you can extrude that side and bring it out using this arrow right here, just the Y axis changing, and very scientific. And then you just want to move it around so that it creates some sort of a hilt. And actually, since you guys are not working off of the image, I'm actually except that's hard to see. And my computer's really slow, so I'm sorry for that.
So what was the quick hotkey to pull up all of the views? As you said, spacebar.
Oh yeah, so if you, I'm not sure if, hopefully it's spacebar. So if you just hit spacebar, you can go in between like your top view, perspective view, and you can go to a specific window if you click on it and just hit spacebar again.
Okay, cool.
And real quick, I'm going to change the color of this so that you guys can see it versus the white background. Okay. And so at this point, since it's going to be symmetrical, pretty much what you can do is you can create whatever kind of hilt and like handguard you want. You can get really creative with it. But keep in mind that since you are working off of a plane, the image itself is going to be very flat. And later on, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be selecting all of the planes and extruding it up. And my computer is frozen, so you guys set up an incremental save. I'm terrible at setting those up, but yeah, I'll teach you guys how to do that so you don't have this problem.
Save very often.
Yeah, save very often because Maya is a bitch. Okay, so
Jimmy, show the second project.
oh, thought I said show that. So I'm hoping everyone already set up their projects. Pretty much what you want to do for incremental save is you go to so each of these options, there's a little square on the side, and this helps you like customize your whatever action it does a little bit. So like if you go under the save scene and hit that little box, you can use incremental save and set that up so that you can have like every time you save, it'll save that file and then save the previous file and then save a new version of it. And so let's just put the incremental save up to 5 so that you don't lose everything.
Or you can say, turn off limit incremental saves.
Oh yeah, well if you have a lot of space on your computer, you can do that. Okay, well we can just turn on incremental save in general, and then set it in your project, which I have not done. Sword demo, scenes, just save. Okay.
What is incremental save able to do?
So if you have the same problem I just did where I just lost all of my work from Maya crashing, what it will do is the last time you saved, if assuming you save often, you can go back into the folder and pick out the last scene that you had. So like if you go under scenes under your project folder, there will be a folder called incremental save, and then from there you can pull up the previous version of that. So whenever you crash, you don't lose everything.
Okay.
Set this up again so that I have whatever I had before. Using the extrude tool. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about the tools currently that I've been using? Because I think it'll be easier if I just answer questions while I do this. No one? Okay.
Can you only extrude on faces or edges, or?
No, you can extrude from faces, edges, and verts, but I wouldn't suggest using verts. But so, like I said earlier, when you extrude from an edge, you only pull a very flat plane out. But then when you extrude from a edge versus a plane, so I'm currently selected a plane, which selects the whole shape of the geometry. If you extrude it, then you get you can create like a much more 3D thing. And so actually, we might as well do that right now. So you want to, on your top view mode, after you hit 6 so that you can see the object, select everything, and then hit the extrude button. And then I would go to the perspective window so that you can see it more in 3D. Move it more towards the 3/4 view and just drag it up so that you have a little bit more dimension in your object. There's something wrong with my geometry. And so when you do that, you'll have a 3D shape so that your flat image will now start looking like something. And from there, you can, since the blade is going to be like the thinnest piece, what you can do is select the plane. Oh, to select planes, hit F11. So that you can select the plane versus the edge mode, vertice mode, and object mode. So once you select the planes, extrude it up a little bit so that you can have a little bit more of a 3D shape. And then what you want to do next, what I would want to do next is I would want to select the handguard so that we can give that a little bit more three-dimensional or more dimension and thickness because it will be thicker than the blade itself. So you just want to extrude on both sides. So just rotate, grab both planes, and extrude. And then if you just pull this, it'll automatically pull the other object to the correct, or to the way the normals itself are facing. Just make it a little bit loops are pretty much the thing that controls all of these, like the shape of the object. So the more edge loops you have, the more control you have over the object. For video games, you usually want to keep the poly count at a very low amount so that it'll be easier for the program to run or the game to run without too much lag. So if you have an object with like a million polys and it's like this tiny sword, then the scene itself is going to lag a lot. So if you ever want to see what your poly count is, you can always go to display, heads-up display, and then click on the poly count, which I have up here. And for video games, you mainly want to pay attention to the tries. So right now mine's at 92, and like a basic character model would be at about 8,000 tries, and like an object, I would say probably 200 to 500 would be fine. So a lot of the like high details that you see in video games, you can manipulate it with what's called a normals map and a texture map, and pretty much what that does is, it's okay. On the geometry of your object, what it does is it projects another image where it would create a little bit more dimension and the illusion of like three-dimensionality and like more texture. Okay, so from here, I would probably add an edge loop. So what you want to do is go to Edit Mesh, and then Insert Edge Loop. This tool will allow you to click on any of the edges that you already made, and it'll create another intersection so that you can mess with that side a little more. So like I created this edge, so I can kind of like bring the blade in a little more if I want to, and like add another edge. Like you can add as many edges as you want for the thing, just to keep the silhouette of the shape. So let's say like I want that kind of a blade, and then for the hilt, since I want to have it a little bit rounder, what I want to do is I want to go on the perpendicular edge and create a point there so that I can actually pull these edges up so that I can create a little bit more of a rounder object. I'm going to do it using a scale tool so that I can uniformly change it. Any questions so far on any of this? Yeah.
This is one part, like, is this one half of the sword and then we're just going to reverse
so,
it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like right now this is pretty much what I have, and I'm going to delete these faces on this side because what I'm going to do is create an exact duplicate of this object, and I don't want the mesh inside to have these extra extra polys. So I'll do that right now. I'll just show you how to quickly duplicate it after I delete these planes. Go into object mode, which is F8, and then you go to edit. Make sure that it's actually locked onto the origins, which I haven't done. So what you want to do is, what I did was I hit D and then V, and I used the middle mouse button to snap it to any vertex. V for vertex, and then D is to change the rotation axis. So what I did was I snapped it to the edge right here, so that when I duplicate it, it'll make a clean copy, and then when I rotate it, it'll be perfectly symmetrical. I'm going to hit the x-axis, click on that, and then hit X, which snaps it to any of the origin, and then middle mouse everything. And so from there, I go to Edit Mesh, then Mirror Geometry, or what you could do is also Control D, which is to duplicate it. So like this is an exact copy of what I have on this side. And I go to the channel box, which you can access from these three buttons if you don't already have it up. Go to Scale X and just hit -1, and you'll have you'll flip it. And then from there, you just hit V, or like you have the point again selected, the x-axis. Hit V, and then you snap it to the vertices on this side, so that it creates a nice symmetrical blade. And then later on, you can. And then what you want to do is, since this object is in two different objects still, so that I can still pull this side and take it off, what you want to do is select both of these by hitting Shift and left mouse, or just drag the entire object, or drag over the object. And you want to hit this button, which is to combine the mesh. So once you combine it, you have this object, which is like a one whole full object. And then, but still, when you go into the vertices and say you wanted to change up some of the shapes, you can see that it's not actually connected. And so we're going to do is we're going to select these two vertices and just hit this button, which is merge vertices. And so what you want to do is just kind of go over the entire shape and make sure everything's watertight. And then you can do it pretty roughly, because usually if it's nicely synced together, then it should just do it on its own. You just want it like that, but I did not do that because I was dumb about it. Okay. So say you have the object fully to one mesh. What you can do now is kind of just like shape it the way you want using the different tools that you've learned, like selecting planes. And then you can bring these in by using the scale tool so it uniformly does it. Or what else you could do is you could double click on the move tool or whatever tool that you want to do, and that'll bring up the tool settings. And that allows you to further customize your settings so that you have it do whatever you want it to do. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it do a reflection so that I can, whatever vertex I pick on this side, it'll mirror it. So whatever I do with this side, it'll copy it. And then I'll just shape it the way I want. And so let's just say this is the basic sword shape that I would want. Once you have the objects that you desire, whatever, if it's like, you can do a sword, you could do a map itself, like a full map with different planes, crates, stuff like that. What you want to do is to import it into Unity or to any other software that you can edit or use for games. Use the asset for games. You go to File, or actually you want to go to, because this isn't automatically set for us, go to Windows, Setting Preferences, and Plugin Manager. And from here you want to find the one that says OBJ Export, and for me it's already loaded, but for everyone else I don't think it will be. That's the default. What you do is you select that, and then you hit Export Selection, save it as an OBJ, and then just call it like Demo 1. And then from there you can export this object into Unity and then use it as a game asset for a new sword or whatnot. And that's actually pretty much what I wanted to show, except maybe some other little like things about how to change materials. But yeah. Did you need to do anything else?
Yeah, you didn't save yet.
I didn't save. Oh yeah, just constantly save because I'm terrible at saving, as you can tell. Okay, and then once you save, so I just saved two different versions. You see on your project window, which is under your documents, Maya, and then projects. So you have whatever your scene was called, which is like, for me, I called it Sword Demo. Yeah.
So when you save it as an object and then you like move it or you transpose it to another program like Unity, is it flat like that, or what happens?
It's not flat. Like it pretty much saves exactly what you have on the file that you've made. And so like normally, like for a prop like this, it'd be kind of a flatter thing, but then you can always change it up to be a little bit more dimensional. Like what you could do is like give it an edge just by adding an edge loop and then just kind of bringing it out like that. And then what you have is when you bring it into Unity, pretty much exact object that you brought in here or that you've exported from here, you can find in Unity or like Unreal or whatnot.
Okay, and then each of the squares are what, a centimeter or?
You can usually set that under preferences, and like for me, I think this is under all in centimeters. Or let's see.
How big is this sword?
The sword is currently.
I want to see it in somewhere else. Like I want to see it.
Then it's under each. Okay, so it's under centimeters right now. And so the object, if you hit F, so the scale of this is actually 13 centimeters just from each square. Fair enough. But then pretty much in the game, whatever size that you decide your object is going to be, like you should set everything to that scale size. So like if it's like 1/16th of the object, normal size, or like if you want to have a real scale size, that's what you want to do. And yeah, any questions about that? Any questions? Other questions?
When you first opened it, I noticed that there was like the texture of the iron sword that you initially loaded up.
Mm-hmm.
And how would you go about putting on the texture? Would you use a
No, everything can be done under Maya. So actually, let me pull up that file then, so that I can show. So what I had is, what you see here is the model that I did off of the card, and do it like an exact replica. And then what you would do is, from here, you would have to UV map it, which means to kind of create just a map so that your image can get painted on top of it. So for this one, I could do like automatic. So this is what my UV map looks like. It was a really quick thing. So normally it should look cleaner than this, and it should have both sides of it. But for demonstration purposes, I just did a real quick thing for texture. But pretty much what you would be doing is you'd be putting it on top of the blend. So like in the beginning, when I set up the image plane here, pretty essentially that's what you would be doing with your texture map as well. You'd create a new material. So like say you use a Lambert or a blend, which are the defaults usually. Go to color, go to file, and then pick whatever map that you've already painted out. And then you could just, okay. So have the object that you've already mapped out as a and then just a texture map on top of it that you can export, import.
And that would apply it to the
Into the entire object. So right now, what it is this is mapped out like exactly like this shape. And so anything within here will read whatever image you put in. So like say I had the sword here. Pretty much I scaled it so that it would fit this shape, or I scaled these UVs so that it would fit the same image plane as this, and then just kind of keep it within that boundary. But normally what you would want to do is paint out your own textures. Yeah. And so you would have a little bit more control of what kind of like what edges lead into what. And so you would open it up on something like Photoshop and just paint right on top of it as a UV snapshot, which you could do in Polygon and UV snapshot. And then and any of that, any color will transfer over to your object. 3D. So the important thing about that would be to really pay attention to how your UV map goes, because what often happens is when your UV map is wrong, you get weird stretching. So let me show you on this object. So say if I had the UV map was wrong and stuff, you can see a lot of stretching.
Oh.
You want to show all the UV map? Okay. So I'll be showing you how to do UV maps and stuff then as well for the object, and it might take a long time.
Well, what we can do right now is whoever's lost, which I bet a lot of you are, me and Jimmy can walk around and help you get to
Oh yeah,
where we are now, currently.
Yeah, let's do that.